Have you ever opened an Excel sheet with thousands of rows and thought, what am I even looking at? Information is repeated multiple times and there's no structure. It's just a big data disaster. Well, I've been there and I can show you a way to structure your data. This is where data modeling comes in. Hey, it's easy, and in today's video, I'll show you how to take other data in a table mixed together and turn it into a structured data model using Power Query in Power BI. We'll break down key concepts such as fact and dimension tables, star schema, relationships, and why data modeling is the foundation for every great report. Let's get right into it. Fact and dimension tables are key to good data modeling. The fact table will usually contain numbers or quantitative data. I like to think of it as what has happened, as a sale be made, as a purchase be made. For instance, you purchase an item or some items from Amazon, have the total amount of items that you've purchased and maybe the total quantity in this instance. So usually the fact table will contain measurable data that can be counted, can be summed, that an average can be carried out on. That's what you have in your fact table. Dimension tables, on the other hand, store descriptive information about facts. So I would like to think of it as giving me details of what has happened, right? So for instance, I buy a camera off Amazon. Amazon has a table that has all of their customers, as well as a table that has all their products in different rows. So I would take fact tables as the numbers or the transactions, and dimension tables will be details describing the facts. Once you've classified your data into fact and dimension tables, you want to connect them together. The widely adopted modeling design would be the star schema, and the reason why it's called the star schema is because it looks like a star with the fact table in the center and the dimension tables all around the fact table.
I've opened up Power BI. I'm going to import the data now. So the data is in here and I'm just going to wait for that to come up. And then I'll select this one and hit transform data. This is Power Query. This data file contains information about the order. We have the order ID, order date, quantity. It also has information about the customer ID, the customer name, their email address, and the product ID, the product's name, the category. And the problem with this data file is, the first problem is data redundancy. It just means like information is being repeated multiple times for almost every order. Let's take for instance Christopher Allen, right? Let's search. You can't see how many times it's repeated here, but let's just do a filter. Let's do Christopher Allen and let's select just Christopher Allen. So you can see that Christopher Allen is repeated 4 times here, and you can also see that the email address is repeated 4 times as well as the address. If we wanted to change the email address now, we'll have to change it in 4 different places. This just makes storage, like, it's a waste of storage, and it makes updates like difficult because we now have to change it in multiple places. I'll just go ahead and remove the filter. Another problem with this data file is that because we are using unnecessary space, calculations will be slower. So if you wanted to do a sum of, let's say, maybe the quantity or a count or an average, it will be slower because the bigger the file, the slower the calculations. Another problem we could encounter is inconsistent data. For instance, if we were to change for this person Sims, if we were to change their email here and we don't change it in other places where person Sims occurs, how then do we say which one is right or which one is correct? Another problem you might encounter would be a difficulty in analyzing the data. So for instance, if you wanted to do like complex formulas, you might experience some difficulties as a result of that. So I'll go ahead to duplicate this file. from the data that I have here, I can tell which one would be in the fact table. Don't forget that the fact tables would usually contain quantitative like information or data, and then the dimension tables will contain descriptive information of the fact. So I would duplicate this into about four tables. So that will be the order table. The first one will be the order table, the customer table, and the product table. So depending on the data set that you have, you would have to make this classification based on the data set that you have. Okay, so I will duplicate this now into 3. I'm going to start off with the customer table. So what I'll do on the home ribbon here, I'll just click on choose column and then choose column again. And then I'm going to select the customer ID, the customer name, their email address, and the address. So I'll click OK. So this would be the customer table, but in order to ensure that this customer table is properly linked to the fact table that we'll create, there has to be a primary key. And the primary key in this sense would be a unique identifier for each record in this table. What that means essentially is that there has to be no duplicate entries. So we can have 2108 or 2132. In order to do that, I'll just right click and then I'll remove duplicates. Okay, and so this is what we have here. So let's just filter to see if that worked correctly. Okay, let's choose 1. And you can see that there's just one record of the customer ID 1. Okay, let's choose 2 or 3. And there's just one record of that. So I'll clear out the filter and you see that the customer ID here will be repeated multiple times in this order table. This table is going to be our fact table. So the fact that it's repeated multiple times here just means that it's a foreign key. What that does is it creates relationship between two tables or between tables, and information can be repeated as a foreign key. So the information here can be repeated in this fact table, but in the customer table, it just has to be one single time. It has to be unique. So I'll go ahead and rename this to dimension customer. Okay. So I'll do the same thing for the product table now. I'll go ahead to rename this as well to dim product. And then this one to fact orders. Okay, so I'll go ahead to select the columns that I want in the product table. So I'll click on choose column again, then choose columns, and then I will select the columns that pertain to the product. So that'll be the product ID, the product name, the category, the seller, and the price. And then I'll hit OK. So I'll do the same thing. I want a column that has primary keys that are unique. So I'll remove the duplicates in this one. Okay, there we have it. We just want to check again that everything isn't being repeated. So let's check maybe 5. And then we only have one instance of 5 showing here. So I will clear that filter. And then lastly, we'll go to the fact table, which is fact order. And then we'll choose the columns that we want here. Okay, so we definitely want the order ID, the order date, the quantity, the total price, the customer ID, and the product ID. So these two contain, that's the customer ID and the product ID, contain foreign keys that create a relationship with the customer and product table. So I'll just go ahead and hit OK. In this case, we don't want to remove any duplicates because there might be multiple instances of purchasing a particular product. Now that we have created these 3 different tables, and we've also removed any form of like redundancy, we'll definitely have our analysis much faster than it would have been. So I'll just go ahead and close and apply this. and we would be able to see the data model in Power BI now. So to have a look at the model, right, we'll go to the model view here in Power BI. And you can see that Power BI has already sort of created the model for us. So this is the fact table, this is the dimension table, and this is another dimension table, right? So this is what is called the star schema. Let's say there were 4 dimension tables. One will probably be here and then another one here. Power BI actually created this data model based off of the matching column names. So you can see product ID here matches with product ID here, and customer ID here matches with customer ID here. You can see that the date table is not yet connected to this fact table, right? So we'll go ahead and connect that. That's because there's no similar column names between both of them, right? I've already created a video on how to create a date table. I'll link it somewhere up there so that you can just click on that and see how to create that. So I'm going to create a relationship between this and this, right? So I'll drag the order date to the date column here on the date table. Before I do that, I want to make this a date table first. I want to mark this as a date table. Okay, I'll just do that and save. And then I will drag the order date onto this date column, and then Power BI pops up this. You have the fact table and then the date table. Power BI automatically chooses the many to one relationship and a single filter direction. So what this simply means is that for each record that we have here, there are multiple instances in the fact table. So for each record in the date table here, there are multiple instances here, and then the filter direction it has also chosen automatically is the single filter direction. That simply means that the filter flows from the date table to the fact table. So the date table is filtering the fact table. So let's just look at the other relationships here. So the many to one and the one to many are the same thing. And this is the one that you most likely see people use. However, we have the one to one. So that means that for each record of dates that we have here, there's also one record here. It's rare, but it does happen. And then we have the many to many. So it just simply means that for multiple records here, you can also find multiple records. This would usually be in large data sets, but we're not dealing with that today. So those are just the types of relationships you have in like the data model. You also have the cross filter that is in both directions. It just means that both tables will filter each other. So it's not ideal for this case, but yes, there's also an instance of that. So I'll just go ahead and save this. Okay, and you can see that this table is now connected to the fact table. So just to show you how important relationships are, right, I'll go and create a visual now. So I'll go to report view, and then I'll click the column chart. I'll also click I'll try to get a slicer rather. Let me put the category, the product category in the slicer, and then I'll put let's do product sum of quantity by the product name. So you have this here. I'm just going to increase this a little bit so that you can see. So you have this here, different products with the total number of quantity, right? So if we click on the beauty section or the beauty category, you can see that that changes automatically to bring the products in the beauty category, and then books, clothing, electronics. So I'll go ahead now and delete that relationship, and let's see what happens. Okay, so this right here, this line is what indicates the relationship. So if you select this line and you hit delete, it would save, and then you can go back to report. You can see that everything is at 3,000. So if I go to beauty, books, clothing, electronics, is just the same thing. So I'll just go back and put that relationship back or connect them back together. So product ID to product ID, one to many, cross filter direction is single, and save. then you can see that you can easily filter again. So it's really important that you have a really good data model. Just try this out and let me know your thoughts in the comment section.
Before creating your report or building your visuals, get your data model right. Think of it as building a house. You won't start decorating the house before the foundation is solid. If you found this helpful, don't forget to share, like, subscribe, leave your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you in my next video. Bye for now.